here. Today we're talking about the cholesterol menace. And how many of you have heard of cholesterol? Yeah. How many of you have heard how bad it is? Well, half of it. Yeah. So we're going to talk, the good and the bad. We're going to talk about it today, what you can do to protect yourself from the menace. So let's go into the first part, which is what the theory is. It's called the heart diet or diet-heart theory. It means that your heart is going to be affected by what you eat. Right? Pretty simple. If you eat cholesterol, that causes arteriosclerosis, which means a thickening plaque on your arteries. If you get plaques in your arteries and you get a blood clot, then what happens? You get a heart attack or a stroke. So here's a heart, and that's showing, the first one's showing a very clean artery, a little bit of plaque, and a lot of plaque. So that's the concept. And so we're all afraid of eating certain foods because they contain cholesterol, and we've been told not to do that. According to the cholesterol education program, which is the national one in the United States, a large body of evidence shows that high cholesterol, blood level cholesterol, is an important risk factor for cardiovascular heart disease. Okay, so it's a really big risk factor, and it can be lowered according to them through diet and drugs. Right. You want your drugs. Statins are protective. So they tell you that statins are protective, and they tell you that it's 90% reduced risk of heart disease when you take statins. And here's where I'm going to show you what that actually means. If you notice these are two numbers, this is from the LRC. It's a trial of 4,000 middle-aged men conducted in 1984, 10-year follow-up period. So they start the trial after 10 years and they take these statistics. They look at a particular statin, and they took only the highest 0.8% of people with cholesterol, so the highest level of cholesterol. The people who are really in danger of heart attack or stroke are put on this particular trial. And what they found at the end of those 10 years is that out of the group, the green group is the group that had no intervention. They didn't do anything. 91.4 of those were still alive at the end of the trial, versus 93% of the people who took the statin. Okay? So what is the difference between 91.4 and 93? Well, it's not 19%. So there's some data here that's missing. Same thing happened here with the actual events. This is the percent of people who had all events, cardiovascular disease that either killed them or didn't kill them. It was 8.6 from the group that took no medications, and it was 7% of the people did not have, had a fatal or non-fatal heart condition under their statins. So do you see this? So the question is, where are they pulling 19% from, right? And the idea here is that it's actually a relative risk. And I'm going to talk about what that means. If we just look at the people who actually died or had an incident, right? Here's the 8.6 and here's the 7. When we take 8.6, that's actually only 1.6 difference, right? Percent difference. But 1.6 represents 20% of 8.6. You see how we're kind of working the magic? So a very almost minuscule to the point of being insignificant difference in risk disease gets told to be a relative risk disease of 19%. So that's where the absolute difference is 1.1% for those who did not have a fatal heart attack, and only 0.6% for those who did. Therefore, it may actually not turn out to be much at all, depending on the population, the number of people you took, and what is actually happening. So it's very questionable. Yet this is the #1 study that has shown you why you should be avoiding cholesterol, or, more importantly, taking the drug that they're recommending. So this is what the cholesterol education program states on their website. So I pulled everything straight from 2 days ago website, so everything's fresh information. They state statins dramatically reduce heart attacks and cardiovascular disease. You just saw what they meant by dramatically. They meant 19%. And however, is 1.1% actually dramatic, or is 0.6% at all impressive? Not really. What's the problem with this theory? With the whole theory, and I'm going to question everything we've ever known about cholesterol right now. We're going to dismantle the whole idea of cholesterol. What's wrong with this theory? Unsupported. There's no evidence for the actual theory. It's uncorrelated. What I mean here is that you can take people with high cholesterol and you look at their blood arteries and they may be full of gunk. You take people with very low cholesterol and you look at their blood and they may be full of gunk. You look at people with really low cholesterol and their arteries may be really free and clear, and you look at people with really high cholesterol and the arteries may be really free and clear. In fact, there is no pattern. There is no correlation between eating a lot of cholesterol or having a lot of cholesterol in your bloodstream and then putting that cholesterol into plaque. There's no relationship between those two. So those people with the lowest cholesterol had just as many plaques as those people who died with high cholesterol. Yes?
I'm still, is there any differential in any of this stuff where they're talking about HDLs versus LDLs?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But I'm not going to go into that in double count. I only have very few minutes. But no, in fact, I'll show you a slide that shows that there's actually no difference between the good and the bad. So again, people are scattered all over the map. There's no correlation between narrowing of the artery and cholesterol levels, period. None. If you have low cholesterol, you can have a lot of clogging of the artery, but if you have none, this is not positive. Now, second question is, so there's no correlation between having a lot of cholesterol and having plaque. Next question is, do people with high cholesterol die more frequently from heart disease, for example, than people with low cholesterol? Right? That's the obvious next question. So we take a whole bunch of people and we just look at their blood samples, and then we wait a couple of, several years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, until they die, and then we make an association. And guess what the association is? Study after study after study after study shows no predictive value for high cholesterol levels, either LDL or just total cholesterol. There is no predictive actual association between those two things. Okay? So we've been told something, and the data there is not supporting this. We wish this information would kind of just go away. We want to ignore that, but it's not going to go away. We can't ignore the actual data. More importantly, cholesterol is actually a molecule that benefits your body, and here are the benefits of cholesterol. Number one, it is part of the immune system. You can't talk about the immune system without talking about cholesterol as a basic function of that. And we'll talk about actually this being the cause of disease, and heart disease is your immune function. So I'll show you how I improve that through Chinese medicine. Basic structure of nourishing brain. If you don't have cholesterol, you have no memory, you have no function. You have Alzheimer's and Parkinsonian-like diseases that come on when people take statins because it protects against stress, it promotes longevity, and it generates your sex hormones. There are many studies that show that people are twice as likely to get HIV if they have low cholesterol. Kids are likely to have more asthma and allergies, and twice as many people will die of heart disease if they have low cholesterol at 129 compared to high cholesterol at 223 low cholesterol. Better to have high than to have low. More people live longer who have the highest cholesterol levels. Cholesterol is at the scene of the crime. Yes, it's in the plaque, but it is not the cause of the crime. This are the causes of the crime. Stress, mental stress, smoking, blood pressure, and essential fatty acids not getting the right kinds of fats, using the wrong kinds of fats. Yes, that will get you into trouble. Symptoms naturally disappear if you treat it. Here's a patient that I treated. The cholesterol ratios are important. They should be 25. Hers was 18. They should be 2. It was 4.3. 6 months later, or 8 months later, September, her cholesterol level went to the right percent, and it dropped to 1.8. Did I treat her cholesterol? Absolutely not. I treated what? The root of her condition through herbs, lifestyle, and actual acupuncture and herbal treatment. Why do you want to come see me? Because you get the best of both worlds. I do Western lab evidence-based nutrition, 20 years of nutritional experience, and I do Chinese medicine with 2,500 years of evidence to support. Any questions? Anything about cholesterol? Yes.
I'm guessing that what you said, the fact that there is no correlation between intake of cholesterol-laden foods and the cholesterol that winds up in the bloodstream and the arteries. Is that the reason that the egg has been rehabilitated? I can remember when they counted how many eggs you were supposed to have. Was it 3 a week? No more than 3 a week? And I've read an egg a day. Okay.
Well, there are a couple of things with that. Your cholesterol levels are going to be constant depending upon what's going on in your life. If you have a lot of stress, your cholesterol levels do go up appropriately because that's your immune system. And it's protecting you from stress because of the things I mentioned before. So, but you cannot, if you lower your intake of cholesterol dietarily, your body will just need to produce that difference by producing more cholesterol from your liver and from every cell. Every cell in your body is producing cholesterol right now, and it's doing so for very good reasons. Statins stop one of the molecules, enzymes, is the initial pathway for the molecule, and so it affects your brain, it affects your sex hormones, it affects your heart and how it functions, because you're not getting your cholesterol. But you cannot lower cholesterol through diet. You cannot do it. About a 2 to 3% and sometimes 8% decrease in cholesterol is the most any study has ever proven. And these are severe restrictions of cholesterol. It can't be done because the more you lower your cholesterol, the more your body's going to produce it on its own. And that's why if you take 100 eggs, don't do that. If you take, normal 3 or 5 eggs in a week, your body will not sense any difference. In fact, you'll relax it because it doesn't have to produce it. You're getting it from diet. But again, diet plays almost no role. Yes.
So what would be a good referral for you? I mean,
Anybody on statins, anybody who's worried about their cardiovascular disease. Now, I'm not saying that disease doesn't happen. I'm saying I can treat it better than putting them on some medication. And yes, I know a lot of people who are worried. I have my own family, parents, grandparents with heart attack and parents with stroke. So I know the idea, and I take it very seriously. And I do research this. For this one presentation, I took over 5 months of study of just cholesterol and the studies and what's happening. So I'm really deep into this issue, and I think it's a major catastrophe, the fact that we're being sold something that's quite damaging. Because if you stop the production of cholesterol in your body, you get a whole bunch of what are called side effects, but they're not side effects. They're actual effects of the drug. They're what it's meant to do. It's meant to disable your body's ability to produce a whole bunch of sex hormones, inflammatory responses, and secondarily, cholesterol. And they're very effective. They will drop your cholesterol, your blood level cholesterol by 50%, some of these drugs. They're very effective at doing that. Yet that doesn't decrease your atherosclerotic plaques. So every study that shows that they drop the cholesterol in your blood had no effect on the plaque buildup in your arteries.
So was it the 4 things you had on the slide that do cause the plaque? Primarily smoking, stress?
Smoking, stress, and essential fatty acids, they're not causative. They're the ones with the greatest risk factor.
Okay.
So if you want to talk about risk factors, risk factors for it, smoking is about number 1. So in all the studies that show that people have decreased mortality on statins, they chose the people who also stopped smoking. Stress, if you're under high stress, in fact, the people with the highest cholesterol that should be worried about heart attack are middle-aged men or younger men. Nothing above 47. After the age of 47, it doesn't matter. Those people in the highest stress of their life, when they're kind of like revving up, no, it's protected for elder people. The higher cholesterol you have when you're older, the longer you live. So for young people, men in 20 to 40, if they have exceedingly high cholesterol, they're probably under a lot of stress. So don't lower the cholesterol, lower the stress, and you will save a heart attack. And then people who eat meats that have not been freely ranged, so that their omega-3, omega-6 balances out. People who don't eat enough of the saturated fats. People who don't eat enough of the polyunsaturated fats. So it's about the ratios of all of these, omega-3, 6, and 9. If those are out of whack, then you may produce cardiovascular disease. But again, the data is way too complex, and what I say is go out, eat, enjoy your life, and if you have real concerns, come talk to me. I know about the nutritional aspects of it, but we've been overhyped on the cholesterol. It's not happening. Neither is saturated fats. Again, I can show you a whole lecture on just saturated fats and how there's no correlation.
Did you look at people's blood tests?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but here, eating this stuff actually isn't causing any harm. For example, most people who eat just a normal American food with some bacon, some steak, some meat, some potatoes, some vegetables, some fruit, you're fine. There is evidence that eating certain omega-3s are really beneficial and will prevent heart disease. Okay? But that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about saturated fats being evil. Yes, trans-saturated fats are completely evil, but saturated fats are not correlated. They're not correlated with any disease. And again, I just read a meta-analysis, a study of all studies on diets, on long-term diets, looking at the trends of saturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, monounsaturated fats, and the only benefit is to stop these trans fats. That will cause heart disease if you eat trans fats at very low percentages, and eating a little bit more omega-3.